Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We caught up earlier today with Tom Larson, CEO of El Oro Resources. They are a silver polymetallic play in Bolivia. We talked to him about his recent surge in the share price and what's driving it. If you want our thoughts on that conversation and what we discussed, and indeed the company itself, you can find that at cruxinvestor.com/club, where you can also find detailed company reports and market analysis. There's also summaries of other interviews that we have done to save you some time. There are training courses on there to help you with your diligence process and commentary from experts from around the world on a variety of companies and commodities. So why don't you go and join our thriving community of shareholders sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other in a nice, safe and friendly environment. Doesn't that sound nice? So you can find them at cruxinvestor.com/club. We'd also like your feedback too. So do give us a like, be much appreciated. Leave your comments below. We get back to absolutely everyone. And of course, if you want to see exactly what we talked about today, take a look in the description below. Tom, how you doing, sir?
Matthew, good to see you.
Excellent to see you. I haven't seen you since August when you were trapped in a Swiss chalet.
Well, I wish we were still in Switzerland. We're back here in Toronto, which is nice. It's fine. But just not a lot of physical activity other than just walking up and down Lakeshore Road here. But anyway, no complaints. Feeling healthy, feeling good.
Fantastic. You're looking good. You're looking at a bit of a suntan going on there. What's happening? Where have you been?
Oh, it's the Arctic sun. It's the Arctic sun. That's all. I haven't been anywhere.
There's a thing called the Arctic sun? Right. Okay. Well,
might be the blood pressure from all this activity over the last couple of months. So,
well, that's why we wanted to speak to you. That's why we've reached out. Thank you for picking up the phone. I appreciate it. Your share price has gone nuts. We're gonna discover why in a second. But tell you what, just for people new to your story, why don't you just give them a quick 1 minute high level view of what it is that you guys are, and then we'll pick it up and get into the detail.
Sure. Again, we're El Oro Resources. We're an emerging publicly traded mineral company, primarily focused in Bolivia, southern Bolivia, in the Department of Potosí. We have a flagship project called Isca. It's a silver polymetallic project. We started our maiden drilling campaign in September and basically trying to outline a major tonnage system. We trade on the TSX Venture under the symbol ELO, and we're also on the OTCQX under the symbol ELRRF. We have currently 52 million shares outstanding, 62 fully diluted. Management and close associates have probably 50% of that float. So it's a relatively tight share cap.
It's very tight indeed. Well, look, I'm going to go over the new ground rather than old grounds, because I'm going to refer people to our previous conversation where we talk about business plan, strategy, the team's track record, not insignificant track record. So I'll put the link below, click on that and do listen to Tom talk about that. Today, though, I want to focus on a couple of things. So, which is obviously what's going on at Isca. But can I just, I'm going to hark back to the previous conversation for one topic only, and that is with regards to La Victoria. Has EHR done what they said they would do? Did they spend the money up until the end of 2020?
Well, no, they have spent money. EHR Resources, an Australian publicly traded company on the ASX at least, they've actually name changed recently their name is now Burgundy Diamond Mines Limited, BDG, BDM, sorry. However, their pursuit now is primarily, diamonds in northern Canada, but they're still very, very interested on the project, the La Victoria project. Again, we did have some setbacks with the local community from the standpoint of allowing us to drill our favorite area called San Marquito. So we've been working for the last year and a half on getting that rectified, and I believe we're now there. Officially, I would say in a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, we should have it signed off, the land rental agreement. Then the Australians, they must spend 1.4 million to move to their 25% interest. And by all accounts, it seems that they really want to move forward on that. So we're very, La Victoria is very much alive. Our Australian partners are still very motivated. move forward on this very prolific target.
Okay, so tell me this. Do you think the market is attributing any value towards that asset? Given it's had a kind of fairly sedentary past, you've got a Australian firm which seems to be focused on diamonds who are showing interest, which is great, but do you think people recognize and give you any value for it?
I don't. At this stage, I think it's minimal value. Even though it's a great address and we have, world-class neighbors within a 50-kilometer radius, you're dealing with the likes of Pan American Silver with their La Arena project and Lagunas Norte Barracks project. However, until we actually start drilling and show the market what we believe could be there, it's been somewhat long-winded waiting for that over the last couple of years. So I think, to answer your question, I think might be 5-10% of the value.
Right. Okay.
Of what we're dealing with.
So the bulk of the 240 million market cap firmly focused on Bolivia, as should we. So let's talk about Esca. Recent news, you've raised $6.3 million. Why did you feel you needed to do that?
Well, we started off on the initial maiden drilling campaign, as we stated back in August, in the underground of Hera Casa, the northern part of the 9 square kilometer property. It's basically a rim within a volcano system. And we started off with some radial drilling underground, but we ended up encountering what they call a breccia pipe to the east. And we call that the Hera Casa breccia pipe. So we started immediately focusing more on that structure and started realizing we needed a second drill, a surface drill, to do some definition drilling. And we realized that the pace of drilling we were getting great production rates of anywhere 800 to 100 meters a day with one crew, double shift. So, we had budgeted for 3,500 meters. And we found that especially when we went back underground and decided to go to the western drill station of the underground to poke holes directly to the west, following this big granodiorite that we knew had been there, we ended up encountering a very large breccia pipe called the Santa Barbara. And so obviously we didn't want to stop drilling. And by November, we were well past our 3,500 meters, and it was time, to keep things going. Obviously, I decided with the board of directors that we had to do a raise, which we completed in December. Actually, first few days in January. We had Haywood Securities and a firm called Echelon Partners. They did a bought deal initially for, I think it was around $3 million, and it moved up to around 6.3 at the end. The good thing about this was that it was a prospectus offering, so major due diligence that they went through. And this is one of the things about Bolivia being a high-risk jurisdiction from a lot of people's point of view. I don't agree so much with that after experiencing. We've got great cooperation down there. But anyway, the contracts, the agreements with our privately owned owner, the Villegas family, this was all highly scrutinized, looked after. And so, we're from a business standpoint, from a corporate standpoint in Bolivia, we obtained 2 top legal firms to make sure that, everything's moving in a proper fashion, and certainly is. Fantastic.
One thing you said to me there, though, was, you've discovered a second breccia pipe. These aren't common down there, are they?
No, in fact, again, to your audience, I am not a geologist, but I'll tell you, I get a lesson every day from Dr. William Pearson, who's our chief technical advisor. He will be going on as executive VP of exploration. Very smart man. He's been around involved in geoscience and different projects for over 40 years. He founded the Jacobina deposit, which is now a flagship property owned by Yamana Gold in Brazil. Anyway, Bill just tells me, and it's really interesting, just on the geology and he's being fed with Dr. Oswaldo, who's written books on Bolivian metallogenic systems. He's very, very familiar the geology in Bolivia, especially southern Bolivia, where we're located, where all the world-class major polymetallic systems reside. So his point was, look at this breccia. Usually if you find one breccia, there's usually clusters of them. And so when we did encounter the Heracassa, which is smaller, but still, there's commercial tonnage within that structure. When we encountered this, I think that was maybe the motivator for us to then go west from the underground to test the western perimeter of the volcano to see whether there were other breccia pipes, and Santa Barbara showed up. I'd like to also add on this, because this is what we're really all about right now, trying to define breccia pipes and showing volume and potential commercial value per ton of rock within those breccia pipes. Dr. Quinton Hennig, who was very, very instrumental in bringing a fund out of Colorado to initially invest in our startup drilling campaign in the underground. They raised $1.5 million for us. He has a strong background as well, technically. He's president of Novo Resources, a few other. He has interest in other properties that he really, really has a passion towards. And he was very familiar with the Penasquitos breccia pipe in Mexico, which is mainly, it's a big silver. It's owned by Newmont today. And, he used to work with Newmont. So he has a lot of background as well when it comes to these breccia pipes. So between the three of them, Bill, Osvaldo, and Quinton, who I call them, our dream team, technically, we've got some good eyes on these pipes and how to move forward with them.
Absolutely. So, and people do get excited when you talk about breccia pipes, usually because there's a kind of polymetallic component. So, when we first spoke, it was gold, silver base. You're now a silver polymetallic company. Is that a reaction to what you're seeing coming out of the ground, or is that a reaction to this fervor in the market, which it started beyond the last 2 weeks of kind of crazy silver talk, but it started towards the end of last year. So what's driving the change of?
No, that's a great question, because obviously in this marketplace, you probably get more leverage being a silver play than you would a gold play, only because there's fewer silver plays out there. But our deposit is a polymetallic. It's a silver. We call it a silver polymetallic. There are multiple metals in it, and I would say that roughly the average from what we've seen to date, 25% of that metal value would be derived from silver. So, we're coming in 25, 30 grams of silver, from the first few holes. But remember, these are big, big structures. So the jury's out as to what the overall grade will be from the varying metals. One thing that's very interesting, though, is when we first started drilling, like at Heracassa, there was no tin credits. But we are starting to notice tin. And tin is 3 times the price of copper. Like it's around 10, 11 bucks, a pound. So 2.5 times the price of copper currently. So, you bring in more and more tin, and we find that what we're finding is as you get deeper into these pipes, they get closer to that feeder, that porphyry intrusive, that magma that came up. And, that's where you can see lots of massive sulfides. And this is where grades, could increase in value, and maintaining that potential tonnage, increasing that potential tonnage. So it's interesting to see what this could be a tin porphyry type of complex that we're dealing with. So it'll be interesting to see if we are getting a lot of tin out of this thing over time.
Interesting, very interesting, especially with the way that tin seems to be moving at the moment. Obviously, people associate breccia and massive sulfides with scale. You're concentrating right now with your money on what? Just understanding the polymetallic structure?
Yeah. So when we decided to move forward with a financing, it enabled us to basically budget for a further 14,000 meters of drilling. And that drilling, we restarted after the Christmas break. We completed around 5,500 meters roughly before we shut down pre-Christmas. And then we resumed, and we're right now on, I believe, hole 4. 1, 2, 3, I believe hole 4. And these are basically surface holes. We're putting our attention on the Santa Barbara pipe to the west of the underground, and also to another pipe that we've outlined to the south, directly south of Santa Barbara, called the Central Pipe. So just to give you some dimension, and then I'll explain what we're doing from the drilling standpoint. Right now, we believe that Santa Barbara is around, the circumference is around, I mean, basically diameter-wise, it's about 400 meters across, but there's a mineralized envelope in dacite, volcanic, which is a further 100 meters around the rim of this pipe. So that's basically a 600-meter diameter. So, you know, what we're doing with that, basically, we want to define it, and that's basically looking at the different quadrants. We're drilling at minus 60 degree to the on surface central part of the pipe. That's where we set up the pad. We're drilling due north minus 60, due east minus 60, due west minus 60, and then we'll do a deep minus 80 hole straight down the guts of this pipe. So I think we've now completed the northeast west holes, and now we're about to engage on the deep hole. That's basically definition drilling, and as Dr. Pearson sort of says, I mean, and it's still early, but he says, you know, this is turning into more of a sampling project than trying to wildcat and find tonnage, because you're defining something within a structure, within a volcanic structure. Well, these pipes, the walls of them are dacite volcanics that were created from pressures that came up, gas and water combinations that created explosions. So the next step will be, once we've completed that drilling, we're in the process of setting up 2 drill pads on site at the central pipe. And that's because of the size of it. It's elongated to about 700 meters south-north on surface with around a 400-meter diameter. So these things are massive structures. So that's why we need 2 central pipes, 2 platforms, north platform, south platform. We will then do a minus 60-degree hole and a deep hole from the north, and a minus 60-degree hole and a deep hole from the south platform. That should complete this 14,000 meters of drilling that we have started off with as of January.
And then what?
So once we've defined basically just these 2 structures, then we can start doing a little bit more infill for the inferred resource. We want to get going with the National Instrument 43101 inferred resource. We're also planning on obviously doing a metallurgical study. We've started slowly into that, because that's the question, all these different metals, is it economic separating them, and what's the cost, and can they be separated, or the penalty elements? So we're moving in on that. That's a very important study that I'm hoping to have completed. The team should have it completed in a couple of months, at least the initial metallurgical study. So that'll be completed. We're also bringing in some geophysics to outline studies, to outline some more of these pipes. We believe there could be 3 or 4 more pipes. So we're going to be doing a gravity and an IP. It's just that the IP should start up in about a couple of weeks' time. We're just, it's just logistics, with COVID and with, some of the border issues, but we're getting it done.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like the phrase that you used there. It's a sampling exercise, and in many ways it is, because there's such tight but massive structures. But 14,000 meters gets you so far. Are you gonna need to raise more capital if you're going to try and find more of these breccia pipes? As I say, they do appear in clusters.
Yes, absolutely. Unless, we do have an FTP site. I mean, we're going to look at all, obviously all optionality, but I think, you really want to build the value here, in the event that you engage with a larger company down the road. That's fine, but you really want to do the work now and prove up what you potentially have. So, I think we could end up moving forward to maybe a 40, 50,000 meter drill campaign. Don't quote me on that. We have to get that verified by the experts, by our team. But that would probably, what would that give us? Would it give us a PEA plus some indicated, like the inferred? When you go inferred these days, they're pretty strict on the fact that an inferred resource should show that it potentially 80% is economic, or you're close to being economic. So, I mean, I think we will have to answer your question. Yeah, we will raise more money to complete at least a 40,000 meter campaign over the next 6, 7 months, 8 months, sort of thing.
Right. So I'm getting to where I want to get to, because you said to me last time, we're not mine builders. Okay. We have a very clear strategy, which we've utilized before. So I'm just trying to understand the picture you're trying to paint for potential strategic partners who come in. So is it a case of, let's focus on these couple, but we know at some point further down the line, we may, or our partners may go hunting for more of these breccia pipes because we've given them some degree of certainty around the type of polymetallic structures that are here. We've done enough drilling to kind of, for them to sort of think, well, actually, yeah, this is worth getting involved with. Do you know what I mean? Because you're 240 million market cap with not a bunch of data at the moment. So would you say that that's sorry, and I do want to get onto this is, do you think you're perhaps overvalued at the moment for what you've got?
Well, I think you would think so when you're looking how quickly they share cap, and the last couple of days, what is going on here? However, when you look at the numbers of these pipes, and I'm sure this has to be proven up, so this is just my own sort of opinion. I could be dead wrong. Okay, I want to qualify that. But if you look at the structures, I mean, it's not hard to see, Eloro being able to outline anywhere from 300 to 500 million tons just from these two breccia pipes, because obviously these are basically plunging into that feeder. So where's that feeder, and how much tonnage based on our definition drilling? That's the point of our definition drilling, trying to show in a future study that this is why we surmise X amount of tonnage, bulk tonnage. So I look at it this way. I take a look at a major mine operation within our 200 kilometer radiant being San Cristobal, owned by Sumitomo. They were deemed as one of the third, fourth largest silver byproduct. There was silver, lead, zinc were the three main credits that they were mining. Just the zinc and the lead alone covers the overall cost of the operation per ton. To operate there, it works out to around $50 US a ton to operate. So let's assume, now I'm sure it would be $1 billion, $1.5 billion CapEx to get into that type of operation. But let's assume that the numbers are similar, the cost numbers are similar to our situation. So if we can show 100, 120 grams of silver equivalent today's prices per ton of rock, and if we can show 300 to 500 million tons outlined just on these two pipes, you figure out the numbers, and I don't want to say, but it's easy to figure them out, and how many shares you have outstanding today, being even fully diluted 62 million. So no, I don't think we're undervalued in the event that we can prove up this tonnage with some commercial. And even if you take out 60% of that rock as non-commercial, these structures carry a lot more than 500 million tons potentially. So it's interesting. Let's put it that way.
It's interesting because in the context of the market at the moment, there's a little bit of frothiness to it with regards to the topic of silver, right? So I think a lot of companies. I've spoken to a couple of silver CEOs today, and they do think there's a kind of synthetic nature to what's going on. This off the back of the GameStop type stuff, and that things will settle down relatively quickly, and you know where you are. And therefore, it's going to come back to, I think the point you've just made is fundamentals, really matter. The kind of promotional, fervor in the marketplace is not real per se. So with what you're saying to me is, we've got our two breccias. We're going to focus on those. We've got some money to continue to do some drilling, but at some point we recognize we're going to need to drill more, to do more of, well, I think it's the sampling exercise that you're going through.
That's right, Matthew. Yeah.
Okay. Well, So, I mean, what should we be looking out for then? What are the highlights we should be looking out for?
I think we just on the sidebar project, the San Marquito La Victoria project. Hopefully, we'll have some sort of announcement shortly that we're back in business there. That would be a press release. And then the good thing about what's going on, we're drilling. And another point I'd like to make. The production rates are amazing. The rock is it's not hard. The bond index is low. We're getting a lot of production, 80 to 100 meters a day. So we're flying through this program right now to the point that you don't need 3 or 4 drills on this property. So you need. I mean, we're thinking, obviously getting a second or third for other of these down the road, but right now to get the information, one drill seems to be working out very, very well. You'll be seeing press releases every 2 to 3 weeks on the drill results of these holes that are going to continue on until the 14,000 meters is basically completed in these 2 breccia pipes. So there'll be quite a bit of news coming out. Well, 2 to 3 weeks, press release per se, over the coming 2 to 3 months.
Brilliant. Well, I look forward to hearing from you because, you've done a cracking job there. Well, tell me this. Given that breccias are not that common in Bolivia, how much of this was luck and how much was design?
Well, and I wish, if I had Dr. Pearson or Quentin Henning, they could explain this very simply. And what I'm told is that the system, what we have is preserved. In other words, the glaciation didn't knock the hell out of the top of this thing, where that has happened in a lot of other areas. There probably were breccia pipes in a lot of these deposits, but maybe they were weathered off. And that this is one of the interesting things that in our area, Isca, 40 kilometers north of Tupiza. This is why Oswaldo has just not seen this. Maybe there wasn't so much glaciation in this particular area. I mean, that's as far, that's the best I can give you.
Okay. I think a lot of it's down to luck sometimes. You don't know what's under there, do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been around the block, Tom, appreciate you coming on. Great to hear from you. You look well, and you've had a great couple of weeks as well. That doesn't hinder things, does it?
No, Matthew, it's always a pleasure seeing you, and looking forward to updating you in the next couple of months. Take care.